Hello and welcome to the award-winning Gutter, a mere 24 hours for the slamming shut of yet another transfer window. Always a sad time of year. Always a sad time of year. When one feels one's usefulness is coming to a natural end.
It's 1st of September for you, a bit like 2nd of January for everyone else. You know, it's as far away as it'll ever be now.
I know. It's a long, boring 3 months of football until it slams reopen in December. Hi, John. Good to have you back after having seen you as long ago as yesterday in doing an emergency gutter. Hi, Pete Bolster. Pete Bolster, is this your debut on the gutter?
This is my debut.
Is it? Yeah.
I'm extremely excited for it.
I'm excited for you, Pete. Yeah. Tell you, we've had a lot of debuts lately. We're bringing through the kids. It's a bit like Liverpool in February, isn't it? Hopefully we won't be jibbing you to some in a couple of months. I'm sure that won't happen. Hi, Mo.
Salzburg's nice if it happens.
Yeah, Salzburg's all right, isn't it?
Yeah. Salzburg's not bad. You can ski, you know. Mo, how are you, Mo? I don't think I've seen you for a while.
No, it's been a while. I'm not that good at skiing, so I'm happy to be here rather than Salzburg, to be honest.
Used to be all right. It's a long time ago. I've retired from international skiing. Okay, come on, let's get back down to business. It's 24 and a bit hours from the end of the transfer window. Yesterday we prematurely celebrated Chiesa Day. Hopefully not prematurely, because I think he's doing second phase of medicals as we speak. Players have failed medicals before, but we're going to work on the assumption that he isn't going to fail. So hopefully this show isn't cast into the dustbin of sadness if he does fail.
Big sad bit.
All right, come on. Let's be. What's the word? Chipper. What we know thus far is that he came on an aeroplane to Liverpool yesterday, looked very happy, just brought a rucksack with him, did a bit of a medical last night. I think he's doing one this morning. And the view is he signs a 4-year contract, joins Liverpool for epoxy, 11 million quid. So let's look at the questions that surround his arrival. Start with you, Mo. I want to get on to the plethora of negatives I'm going to find in a minute, just because I like trying things in. But the positives are clearly big, because it's an exciting one, this. What do you think, first off? What did you first think? What can he bring to this Liverpool team?
Well, okay, so full disclosure, anyone who follows me on Twitter will know that I think it's fair to say, sceptical.
Oh, of course you were. You were a naysayer.
Yeah.
Sorry, let's go to John.
No. I've been fighting off replies ever since. But I would also like to point out the fact that I was probably one of the first people at this table, definitely the first person at this table who was high on him like 6 years ago. Like, you can go back and listen to old European shows. In fact, someone actually tweeted me to say
anyone can say that. No one's finding stuff in our archive.
but you just chat shit about everyone, Rob. It's not quite the same. I was very much, when he was sort of Fiorentina, I was like, this is a guy who could do bits for Liverpool. And I still maintain that. I still think that as an actual footballer, I think that he could be a very exciting addition to our Arsenal. When you think about what he's good at.
To Arsenal?
To our attacking Arsenal. When you think about what he's good at in terms of his dribbling ability, his one-on-one defending ability, his ability to go with both. He's a truly two-footed player. If you go back and watch, he's able to score left foot, right foot. But not only that, he can score with his left foot on the left side, with his left foot on the right side, his right foot on the right side, essentially. He basically produces the finish that the situation demands. And that's what you want from a player. He's someone who gives defences nightmares. And we want more of those in there, because what those kind of players do is they create space for their teammates. So when you're thinking about on the pitch stuff, it's all positive. I'm still frankly quite stunned the fact that we were able to get him for the same money as Bobby Clark, when you think about it that way, because essentially
barely more wages either.
Well, we'll come on to that in a minute. This is at his best an 80 million plus pound player.
Yeah,
that we are getting for 11 million. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's hard to say that there's anything bad about it, even though I did try. And I may still try at some points in the show.
Well, it is a fascinating one, Pete, because you can put your blinkers on and look and go, oh, OMG, £80 million player coming to Liverpool, exciting way. Cast your mind back, as Mo said, a few years. He was a natural successor to Mo Salah. You would have done anything to sign him. But there's a reason we're getting him for 11 million, and there are many. And there are, to my mind, until we see him play and see how he performs in a Liverpool shirt, my excitement, although it's hard to do so, is tempered because there are two Chiesas. There's the before and after Chiesa, and I didn't watch him last season enough to be able to say, do you know when he came back? We've seen what happens with players post ACL. They can either never recover or take a while to recover. Have you got any feeling for what version of Chiesa we're getting?
I think I'm less worried in the sense that we've got a wealth of forwards, so we don't need him to come in on Sunday and be absolutely flying. I mean, we would all love it if he did. I can already hear Peter Drury's commentary of Chiesa's winner, like Martial did a few years ago against us. So, like, if that happens, that's great. But no, I don't think there's like any real pressure on this to work. It's the buzzword of the summer, isn't it? Opportunistic. If it works, great, and if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world.
I think it is the end of the world.
First thing he said on the show, and it's wrong.
I'm off to Salisbury.
It's his first game. Drum's getting on his back. Well, no, it's not the. Look, this is why my stupid little head's getting confused by this transfer a bit. If I'm honest with myself, Pete, because on the one hand, I want to let loose and go, brilliant. Because if it was Anthony Gordon walking through the door and we were paying 80-odd million for him, I'm just going, I can't wait. I know he's the real deal. I know it's a sure thing. He's going to be very exciting. Okay, there's all kinds of questions of where he fits in. Case I just don't know. I get that 11 million, if it turns out that he's after Melo or Thiago level injury prone, or he's not got what he used to have, and we get to see that within 6 weeks. It's like meh in a commercial sense, but it's not in an opportunity sense. We've had a difficult window as supporters. Let's put it like that, because we became the only club in Europe to not sign anyone. So we finally signed someone, and I know this is asking too much. I kind of know who we're signing here. That's my inner confusion and frustration with it.
Yeah, I think the frustration as well comes from a series of summers with Liverpool not signing enough players, and I know that we signed 4 last summer, didn't we? But we let 5 go, and it was an accumulation of neglecting the transfer market. So I think that's where a lot of supporters, you see it online, you see a lot on Twitter, everyone being frustrated about not signing players, and I think this is why it might be the end of the world for you, Rob, because it's the only outfield player right now that Liverpool are looking to sign, certainly with 24 hours or so left at the transfer window. So I totally get that. I think if we just look at it as in a business sense, that's what I meant to say. Like, it's not the end of the world if it doesn't work.
Sure.
If you look at it the way they break the transfers down, if you look at it, I'm going to ask you, Mo, because I think you know something about his wages. Is his wages lower than what it's being reported?
Well, I mean, it always sounds weird talking about another man's money, but
we do it all the time.
We do it all the time here, so it's probably fair to do it. So the reason why he is available now is because he turned down an extension from Juve 12 months ago because he wanted more money than they were offering him.
Oh, really?
Yes. That's the only reason his contract's running down. They wanted to keep him. They wanted him to build. Although this was before they got in the new manager, I should probably point that out. And then earlier on in the summer, he was being touted as going to Roma. Besiktas were looking at him.
Inter willing, weren't they?
Inter.
They had a fear of Inter.
Yes. I think Juventus didn't really want to sell him to another Italian club. So
that tells you something, doesn't it?
Yeah, that they still think that he's a good player.
This is the reassurance I'm after.
Yeah. So then Besiktas chairman, as is his one, came out and said that he was asking for 9 million euros to come there, which works
180 a week-ish?
Was more like 145, 150.
Oh, euros, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
But the thing with that is that, was he asking that because he thinks Besiktas is a step down?
Yeah.
And maybe he thinks if he was going to a place like England or like Liverpool, then he'd be able to be more competitive. But considering he was already on around about 130-ish at Juventus, it's hard to believe that he would come down. And the fact that he was wanting more makes me think that it's hard to think that he would come down massively to come to England. So I don't know what the numbers are. I'm expecting them to still be north of 100.
They're talking about 120k a week-ish on the reports, which sounds about right.
Which, I mean, in isolation, it isn't bad. I just keep thinking about Luis Diaz. What's he thinking? Because it's like,
well, there is a sorry to cut across you, but there is a factor when you bring in a player. He's not exactly on a free, but it's quite close to a free. It's almost like a contract rundown situation. So the player can get because assuming he doesn't get a fat signing on fee, right?
Yeah.
He can therefore go, well, come on, what you're saving on the fee, you give a little bit to me, and what the balance is working out for us.
yeah, it's working out for us great. But I'm thinking about Luis Diaz, who's still on like 60. And it's like, I've been carrying this team at points.
We
I've
need to
been
go
the best player
fund
of
me.
the
I mean,
season.
it's outrageous what he gets paid.
But then does he want to sign a new contract or not? I mean, that's for Diaz. I mean, this is sort of a separate thing. But I mean, what does he want? Does he want to stay? Does he want to sign up? If he did, I'm sure the club would be happy to talk about it, and I'm sure he'd be on more money. He just sort of needs to decide what his future is, really.
But why isn't he getting a new contract? Because it's all performance related, and aesthetically, Luis Diaz looks like the best player in the world at times with his little tricks and flicks and things. But his numbers has been talked about many times on the Anfield Wrap and on other shows. They're not high as they should be. So what is his contribution to the team? And when he's going to the table to talk about a contract, is his wage demands too high? I mean, his dad doesn't help either, does he? Always linking him with other football clubs. So I'm not sure. I mean, he started off like a house on fire, hasn't he? Recently. So we'll see what happens with that. I can see a world where Luis Diaz does get a new deal, but I think he's going to have to play for it over the next few months and make sure that he's shown his worth to this football club.
I think the balance comes where, because obviously the whole reason we bring up Luis Diaz and all that kind of stuff is you want harmony, you want chemistry, you want people to be able to feel like they're all working in the same direction, they're all happy to be with each other, and there's not looking over your shoulder at your teammate going, well, he doesn't deserve that, I should get that, etc., etc. You don't want that festering in the dressing room.
No.
Hello, Manchester United. But I think with Chiesa, the thing that maybe can mitigate that is the fact that they can look at it and say, well, okay, this is a star. Like, Liverpool haven't bought many stars, but he legit is a star. Like, I think probably the only one who I can think of we've bought in the last 4 or 5 years who was legit a star was Thiago. And yeah, didn't quite work out as we wanted.
But let me just ask you quick. Actually, we've worked towards quite an interesting set of parallels, which I didn't intend for us to do, but it's good, this, between Diaz and Chiesa. Now, they're very similar ages, right? Mm-hmm. So their life expectancy and resale value, life expectancy in football terms, is very similar. If neither were playing for us, but you'd watched them both over the last couple of years, and they're both available, one was available for free, Mo, and one was available for 11 million, which would you buy?
Which is which?
It's a loaded question because you buy them on for no. Sorry. If Luis Diaz was available for free and Chiesa was available for 11 million,
oof.
I think it's a fucking no-brainer. You'd sign Luis Diaz.
But what position is he playing?
Luis Diaz.
Yeah.
Well, left wing at the moment.
So that's what everyone keeps presuming he's going to carry on playing left wing. So
you can play him anywhere.
You can play him anywhere, but I think when you look at the Liverpool attacking force last season, there was something wrong, and it's not always obvious. And I think that Mohamed Salah has had blistering pace over the years, and although he's still shown that pace recently, it is declining. He is getting older. Diogo Jota isn't the fastest player in the world. Cody Gakpo isn't the fastest player in the world, and Luis Diaz isn't direct enough. You come to Darwin Núñez, he's not onside, so it doesn't matter. He's just offside anyway. So what comes to mind with me is with this deal is he's more direct. He's full of explosive pace, and I think he just adds a different element to this Liverpool attack. But also, Luis Diaz, what do you do with him? I remember him coming into the team at the end of the 22-23 season. And one of his fantastic attributes was keeping hold of the ball, holding up the ball. And Slot loves keeping hold of the ball. Diaz is more safe. And to me, there's an idea here where he comes and plays a number 10 position where Szoboszlai is playing at the moment. And I think that he can move all around that front part of the pitch. It's the same where people keep talking about Curtis Jones. Jones' ball retention is fantastic. Diaz was 100% against Brentford on Sunday. So the idea that he's not a slot player, I think he was just a more marketed player in the summer. The one that you could say, well, actually, you've just touched on it, Rob. Who would you sign? Well, that's what Liverpool are probably thinking. Who can we sell to raise funds to bring someone like an Anthony Gordon in. That hasn't transpired now. So having Diaz in the team and utilising him somewhere else, and obviously still playing on the left wing as well, because it's not like Chiesa is going to play every single game. I think that might be something that we look going forward.
I think what's interesting, the point I was sort of trying to push people towards is in the comparison is, we've had conversations about Diaz all summer long, and a lot of them stumbled on the thing was, yeah, but he's about to be 27, or he is 27. What kind of money are you going to give him? Liverpool don't have this approach towards 27-year-olds where they do resale. And yet here we have this situation where Liverpool are not banking the farm, banking a modest amount of money, but with a decent contract, let's call it $6 million a year in wages, on a 27-year-old player. So if I'm Luis Diaz, I'm going, oh, that's good news for me. Maybe they would give me...
If he wants to stay?
If he wants to stay. Yeah. I think Luis... I don't want to put him down or anything, but I think it's all about dough for Luis Diaz in his career at the moment, because he's only got one big contract left.
Yeah, and he feels like he could legitimately feel like he's been underpaid in comparison to his...
Given his status.
In comparison to his importance to the team over the last couple of years. That's fair. I think... In terms of what Chiesa can do, I think another thing that we have to point out as well is that he is right-footed, but as I said, he's very two-footed, but he's a right-footed who could play on the right or who could play on the left, and is probably equally comfortable in both positions.
Yeah.
So he himself has that versatility. In terms of what Pete was saying before about his explosiveness, like, I did watch him. I've gone back since this is all broken and rewatched some of his games from last year, because I was very keen to see, like you say, is he still the same player? He still has the explosiveness. He still has the ability from a standing start to burn past defenders.
Did you watch all those YouTube highlight things?
I watched YouTube highlights, but I also watched full games, Robert.
Did you know that?
Yes.
Well, no, this is what I want to get to, because I only watch YouTube highlights. As a man who only watches YouTube highlights, you see a lot of him putting his foot through the ball well and scoring some goals. You don't see many of him absolutely lacing people on the highlights. No. So do you see that in games
Yes,
more?
you do. And
Great.
I think the other thing you see, and this is in comparison to what we've seen so far from Liverpool's wide players in this little new slot era, is you see a lot of him having to control the ball in tight spaces, hold off a defender, turn and run with it. And if you think back to the Brentford game, the amount of times that Salah or Diaz was the out ball with his back to goal, from the goalkeeper, he had to protect it and he'd lay it off or turn and run. He was doing that. Chiesa has that in his locker, very much so. So
is he strong?
Yes. Sometimes almost too much so. Like, he has a bit of the Diogo Jota where he's just gonna run through people.
Is that why he gets injured a bit?
Maybe that's why he gets injured a bit. And okay, on the injury thing, so we need to kind of talk about it, because I know that yesterday some shows it said it was exaggerated, and yes, up to a point. So if you look at last season, for example, there's the one in October, which very much probably is an international break diddle.
Yeah.
But then there's the period between December and January where he's in and then out. And this is the kind of thing that I'm concerned about. It's the fact that he was out, then he was in, and then he was out for 2 games, and then he was in again, and then he was out for 2 games again. So... And that's not to say that Juventus have been using him poorly. They gave him a long time after his injury. So he came back in November 23, I think, and he didn't start a game till
22.
November 22, and he didn't start a game till February. So they weren't pushing him too early. They were very much easing him back in.
Yes.
And yet there were still periods of that. And again, it always feels like you've been kind of xenophobic to talk about this, but there is an intensity to our league that is higher than you get in Serie A normally. So as much as you were saying he was not expecting to play every week, he's part of a big cabal of attackers. We're still hoping that last year was an anomaly for Mo Salah, and the injury he got is not the kind of thing that happens. But what if it's not? What if it's a sign of him getting older and then he has another long injury and suddenly we're asking Chiesa to play 15 games on the bounce, and then suddenly we're all kind of crossing our fingers. That's kind of where my concern comes from. I hope I'm wrong. I want to point this out. I hope I'm wrong. But that's where my concerns are.
I think your concerns, on balance, they're very well founded, mainly because we've had experience of buying players who've come with where we've had exactly these debates.
Yes.
I mean, Konate, quite frankly, we had these debates about. We said, oh, he's young, he's over them. No, he's not over them. Not yet. Arthur Melo, don't even talk about it, right? Thiago, he is a not dissimilar profile to Chiesa in terms of his injury thing. We all went, he's played a lot of games for Bayern in his final season, had pretty injury-disrupted things. I'll even go back to Oxlade-Chamberlain, who we knew was an injury risk. Chiesa's, yeah, I mean, we can, if we want to be positivists, and we do, we can frame it around the cruciate and say there's not a big litany of injuries before, and everything after is the 18-month rehabilitation phase. And maybe this is what, come to you on it, John. I mean, we know that the boys back at the lab, Richard Hughes and the gang, aren't stupid. We're having these conversations. They are going to have paste those rooms, chalkboards, cigarettes till all hours. Think about this one and going, is he an injury risk or not? Because even regardless of the money, what's the point? What's the point of filling a slot? Because there's a limited allocation of slots in a Premier League and UEFA squad. Why fill a slot with a guy who might not be available? You feel they must have done their due diligence on this.
Yeah, they will have.
The hopefulness in my tone to you.
No, listen, they'll be well aware of all the risks. They are safety conscious buyers.
Risk averse.
Risk averse. And one of the complaints that Klopp had was that they're a little bit too risk averse. And you know, he didn't moan about the transfer situation too much. But one of the things he did say was he'd have liked if they'd, have taken a few more gambles and have rolled the dice a little bit more sort of on occasion. Like you said, they haven't bought anyone yet this summer. So when they do go, they've had a sort of a big think about it. They'll be well aware of all the things that Mo quite rightly points out. They'll be well aware that there's pitfalls in it, that they're not necessarily getting the player that got everyone excited sort of 2-3 years ago. They might do, but there's sort of no guarantees, and there's no guarantees, how often you're going to get him on the pitch. But they'd have looked at his qualities. They'd have looked at what Arne Slot wants from a wide man, which is, all the things that Mo was talking about there: good on one-on-ones, pace, ability to get goals, good with both feet. They'll have looked at his versatility and thought, a lot of people are talking about him as a switch for Salah, but I think he's a switch for both sides, and potentially, if you wanted to play, one off as well in a certain situation, throw another forward on, he's a good option for that. And so they'd have looked at in different ways that they can use him, and just the obvious qualities of the footballer, and just decided it's one to go for. And it is. There are risks there, but that's reflected in the price and reflected in, if they'd have been absolutely sure about him, he'd be here already. Do you know what I mean? They've waited till the end of the window because, they obviously had, one or two others. I mean, not least Andy Gordon, of course, who did have had a sort of a preference for, who would have felt like more of a sure thing because, for a variety of reasons, not least because he's played in the country. But, they've got to the situation now where they'd like to add one other, and he seems like the best fit, and he is available. We're just going to have to sort of wait and see on it, but it feels to me like a bit of a free hit. I take your point on the wages, I take your point on the idea of filling a squad place, but
opportunity cost.
Yeah, but I think so there's never a complete, there's no such thing as a free lunch in football, but he's as close to it, I think, as you can get, really. It's funny, I did a call after we did the show yesterday, and I said I was speaking to you and afterwards, and I spoke to you and who Mo spoke to before, and people were a bit sort of snotty on Twitter saying, he wasn't very excited and stuff like that. And
was he not?
No, but no, he was just a little bit like Mo. He was like, he said this could go either way. He was really, I think, interesting on where he felt it had gone wrong last year in a way that got me excited. So he talked about the fact that Juve didn't score any goals. It's 54 across the season. So he's playing in a team that are struggling attacking-wise. He said, like, a lot of times he's receiving the ball and just had no one anywhere near him. And Liverpool, we've seen our combination play, so far this season. He's going to have players running around him. Do you know what I mean? He's not playing right wing with a right back who's stood right, sort of miles away, and a midfield who stood there watching him go. If he's playing wide right, he's having Szoboszlai all around him. He's got Trent sort of overlapping. He's got a forward who wants the ball. It's a completely sort of different situation. So that actually sort of got me quite excited. You think, well, you put him with players who we can link up with well and get into these one-on-one situations rather than what sounds like 1-on-4 or 5 situations last year. Then that could sort of really blossom. But what you were saying was, are you getting him at his best, which was what he called one of the top 10 forwards in the world, or are you getting someone who isn't that? Or he said you're getting one week and one the next, which is a little bit of what Juve have seen. And
take that.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then
you say that now, though. It's like, what if the off week it just happens to be
a week you pick him?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we got substitutes for.
And the on week he's on the bench. There's a risk there, but I think the pros are enough to get Liverpool fans excited, and as I say, they make so few of these that when they do, I think there is a reason to go, okay, let's see what they think they can do with them, and let's see what the manager thinks we could do with them. I'm looking forward to watching them play.
I'll tell you what is interesting. I've watched the YouTubes, which are interesting, but again, you've watched the whole matches, but there are a couple of metrics which are inescapable. One, I was reading about some stats from his appearances in the Euros in the summer. Now, it's interesting, Italy, he's a first pick for Italy. I think he starts 3 of the 4 games they play.
Yeah, the one that doesn't start, that was the last one, though. They drop him for the...
It might be a load. Okay, maybe it's 4, but he clocked the fastest running bit at 34 kilometres per hour. So he was the fastest player in that squad. It's not everything. I don't entirely trust those stats, but it's a good indication when you're talking about... Because when you talk about a player post an ACL, especially an attacking player, especially a player who's had a reputation as a wide player, it's inescapable that pace is such an important part of their arsenal. That you don't want to hear, he's lost half a yard, because that makes... If anything you don't want to hear is that... The other thing is, the other key number from last season is, I think he posts his highest number of goals for Juve in any of the seasons he's been there, including when he was pre-injury. I think he scores something like 11 all comps, 9 in Serie A.
Yeah.
And that's heartening, John. You said they only scored epoxy 54 goals. So his is a high percentage of their entire goal haul. So I have to say, I'm not saying it's a unique one, Mo, but it's one of the more intriguing ones I think we've ever signed, because it just so could go either way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I almost felt guilty having thrown so many caveats around, because...
He's our new signing.
Yeah, well, I mean, admittedly, I was throwing them mostly around before he actually came in the door. But because I've loved him as a player for so long, and I felt like I remember...
He's hurt you, hasn't he, Mo?
Well, I was just so heartbroken when he had the injury, because, I remember back in the summer when everyone was saying we should sign Timo Werner, I was like, no, get him instead. He's better. He's miles better. And, I mean, that's very much been proven to be the case. The stuff with his goal scoring last season, and kind of what John touched on, what Ewan was saying, the Juve were playing 3-5-2, which was really a 5-3-2. Like, it was one of those 3-5-2s where the wing backs are actually getting nosebleeds when they go past the centre circle. So he wasn't kind of being told to hug the central areas, but he was looking out wide and seeing no one there to cross him the ball. So he's like, well, I can do that, so I'm going to go out wide. So he was funneling out
goals
wide.
Come from wide-ish positions, don't they?
He was funneling out wide loads, but that was also why he was finding himself with no one around him.
Because he'd go
out there and he'd be like, oh, well, I'm doing it. And that kind of feeds into the other downside that sometimes gets brought up with him, as much as he can be a bit of a head-down footballer. I feel like he's kind of evolved away from that a bit, but I think when you watched Juventus last season, particularly in the second half of the season, because that's the other thing, up until January, they were great, they were flying, and then second half of the season, they just fall off a cliff. And in that point, it all gets a little bit fragmented, and at that point he saw us like he's going to try and take on too much. And again, he reminds me of Luis Diaz a bit that way. In some of the games last season when Luis Diaz was just like, I don't know what you are doing, I'm just going to try and get the ball and try and dribble through as many people as I can and see where it gets me. He has that about him, but I do think that he's also intelligent enough as a footballer to be able to work within a system. I want this to work badly. I can't explain how much I want this to work, because I think he's a fantastic player. And he's the kind of guy at his best who I think fans will really get behind, because not only does he have the flair, he has the work ethic as well. He'll chase back like 30 yards back and put a tackle in and get everyone going. You might wince when he does it, but he'll still do it. But it's the consistency. That's probably another thing we're going to see. Whether or not we'll be in a situation where we can ease him in gently here and there, and then as he gets used to the tactics and the system, then we can start seeing him fly. I don't know, but it might even be a situation like when Diaz came, where the first 6 months is just like, just do what you do naturally. Like we'll just put you on and you do you, and we'll work around you. And that seemed to work for him. So
I think back to the times where we've all been hurt by signing world stars. The more I'm mulling it through, I mean, I'm going to go way back here, like Yari Lippmann, he broke my heart. Harry Kewell did in a way. Thiago did in a way, and Morientes. The thing about all those boys, though, is they were never, even in our wildest dreams, really, because of the age we tended to get them at, going to hit the heights of their career. We were just going to get world-class players in a settled phase at best, right? Whereas he's at that peak, he's at the age Liverpool by Kenny Dalglish, more or less, give or take a couple of months. So the upside, Pete, is, as we keep saying here, as we're going backwards and forwards on this one, is enormous, the potential upside on this. It does strike me that it feels like a big club kind of thing to do. Let's put it this way, had it broken 2 days ago that Chelsea were adding him, notwithstanding the fact that it'd be like, well, you just buy fucking everybody. Actually, forget Chelsea. Man City. Say Guardiola had pushed the button on him, or even Arteta had pushed the button on him, we'd have gone, fuck. I think that would have been our first reaction. Shit, another really good player in their squads.
Yeah, annoyingly so. And again, we're going to talk about the price, but his price is so low for a player of his calibre that you'd be thinking, why haven't Liverpool gone in for him? So you would be ruining that miss. I think I really do think he's a no-brainer. If you go on the website Transfermarkt, I think it's the German one, he's rated 35 million there. So the fact that we're getting him for half of Stewart Downing, I mean, I can't see how. I just think it's very low risk, and I know his wages are going to be a certain price, looking about £150,000 that I've seen. I know Mo said 120,000. But I'm just trying to pick up on something you said, Rob, about Thiago. When Thiago got brought in, I thought it was one of the worst transfers of modern times for Liverpool.
Right.
What a fantastic footballer, but you replaced him basically with taking Gini Wijnaldum out of the side. So then you were reliant on him. No one's leaving.
That's a really good point, Pete.
So no one's leaving, and so we are not as reliant on him, and that therefore I just can't see how it goes catastrophically wrong. And I also think that I don't believe that he's going to be eased into the team because he's fit. He's been fit for a long time.
Hasn't kicked a ball since the Euros, though, I don't think.
Yeah, the Euros.
Competitively.
Yeah, the Euros wasn't that long ago. As the Italian League even started, is it?
Yeah, they didn't pick him for the first couple of games.
Yeah, and they probably haven't picked him just because they're trying to freeze him out.
Correct.
In the sense of just trying to get rid of him. And why are Juve trying to get rid of him? I think that's a big question as well, because obviously they're a massive club, but they're going in a different direction, and managers have their own ideas. And sometimes it's just as simple as that. They want a bit of a change. They want to clear the decks, and they want to bring in who they want to bring in. Last season obviously didn't go well for them. 54 goals is quite dour, isn't it? What I always thought as well when I was younger, it used to always annoy me that footballers would always go and play for Arsenal because of the way Arsene Wenger played football.
I fucking hate Arsenal.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Sam in the corner doing the video there.
I wouldn't like Sam either, but you know. No, it's all the time, because obviously we had Gerard Houllier and we had Rafa Benitez as managers, and players used to always pick Arsenal just because of the way they played football. And I think footballers in general don't think about how they're going to fit in. And John said before about Chiesa, he'll have a hell of a lot more chances and a lot of more players just in that attacking third alongside with him. I think this is tailor-made for him, and obviously it hasn't been for Juventus, so maybe this is the perfect move for him by accident, really, because I don't think he envisaged himself leaving Italy. I think he would have been this Juventus superstar for a long time, but it hasn't worked out. But this might be brilliant for all of us.
I think John made I think it's a key point, certainly for my emotional instincts on this deal, because through the summer we've been very Anthony Gordon focused, and with good reason, because there was a deal nearly done back in June, and I thought it might take to the end of the window to get this over the line, and Liverpool and Newcastle play brinkmanship with each other. I also thought that, unfortunately though, in parallel, that same thing would be happening with Luis Diaz, and there'd be someone in the background, be it a Barca or a PSG, who would rear their heads and go, we'll give you 60 million for Luis Diaz, and we'd go, well, fuck it. As we're bringing in Anthony Gordon, we've got to take the Diaz money. I suppose I didn't really envisage, although we talked about it being good, a universe where we had both Diaz and Gordon in the squad at the same time. And if we did, it wouldn't be for very long, maybe last till Christmas. With Federico Chiesa...
Freddie Church.
I've got a great song, by the way. Tune of Torres, well, I'll do it in a minute. With Chiesa, it was almost unambiguous that it wasn't going to be a trigger for anyone leaving. Yes, it might have been with a view to what might happen next summer, but it was always going to be, this is going to be a sixth forward. Whereas I think if we'd signed Anthony Gordon a week ago, I'd have still been on pins that we were going to lose somebody. We were still going to start the season with 5. I kind of feel that for the first time, I'm at peace with us not signing Anthony Gordon yet. Yeah,
I think Anthony Gordon will happen as well, and so I think that's an easier one to become peace with, because I think it always felt like it's a when rather than an if, and the when might have been looked like it was going to be sort of this summer, but now I think it is in the future, and next year Newcastle will really have a decision to make unless they can somehow convince him to sign a new contract, which I don't think they will, and so I think the forward line, the whole team's going to have a bit of rejuvenation, I think, over the next few years. And I think, Edwards and Hughes are looking to build this new team. And the way I see it for Chiesa is he's got a year almost audition to be part of the new Liverpool forward line, and is he part of a 5 going forward, or is he that sort of 6th wildcard choice, or is he someone who they actually shake hands and say, well, this hasn't worked out, it was worth a go next summer, or again, all 3 are possible, but he's got this sort of great opportunity. It's going to be hard, fitness permitting, to keep 6 happy, but I think there are question marks around so many of the others, and he's one of them. In that that's kind of where we're at as a football club with the contract situations, with a new coach coming in. We're not sure at the moment what he thinks of many of the forwards, really. We know the ones he started, and he sort of seems to, he obviously seems to like them. But, in terms of the 2 he's not picking, what are his thoughts on those? Would he prefer a different striker to Jota, for example, if he had one? But he doesn't. We don't know. We're all sort of learning, and I think he's come in at a really good time for him and for the club, and because there's a possibility to sort of grab that shirt while there is in a bit of a flux in it, and if he does do well, have his maybe even his best years at Liverpool, who knows, because he still is only 26, and Mo's point on that exciting footballer he was, there are players who've been able to adapt and become even better in terms of their all-round game, and maybe he is one of those in a different scenario. I'm so happy that he looks, like Pete says, so excited to be here. He could have looked a bit sheepish getting out of that car, couldn't he? Leaving Juventus, coming over here. It's all happened so quickly.
Barcelona factor as well. He wasn't disappointed.
There's that all over. No, he looked like he'd start Sunday if he could, and that's brilliant, because you want people to be made up to be here and to be delighted to be here, and that's sort of a really good sign. And so for all of them, we'll not just him, I keep saying they're all new players for Arne Slot, and he's another sort of new one as well. But the fact that he is sort of sick, and also the age, we have to keep in mind, because the ones that you kept referencing there, the Litmanens, the Morientes of this world, or of Liverpool, I think for a few of them, I mentioned Maxi Rodriguez yesterday, and he was another one. We said, I wish we'd have got him a few years younger. Well, we have with this one, we have, and so he can definitely have his best years at Liverpool. Why not?
Sometimes you sign a player who hasn't got an injury problem, and then they have an injury problem. Naby Keita was one of them.
Didn't have a bad injury record.
And also,
true.
Listen, I wish we were signing a player that didn't have an ACL injury, but it's a bit different than it was 10 years ago. Medicine's improving all the time. Surgery, the recovery periods. Virgil van Dijk, ACL. Did Joe Gomez have an ACL? I'm pretty sure he did quite a few years ago. Yeah. So, I mean, he played 51
Even Nabil friggin' Fekir, who we didn't sign apparently because of an ACL, hasn't had any big injury issues since, has he? I don't think. He probably hasn't hit the height, so that's a different.
And they are selling him to Saudi, but yes.
But it's been a few years. It was 2018, I think, when we just about bought through.
I just think it's one of those injuries that we all go, oh God, but actually things are changing all the time.
And it's been 18 months. Can I move it on, Mo? Okay, you go on. You make
No, it's fine. Actually, no, move it on, because the last thing I was going to say was a real downer. We probably don't want to end.
We'll save that downer as an upper for when he fails his medical, and we have to come back in for
a very different feeling.
I would call it a dire emergency gutter.
Didn't fancy him anyway.
Didn't fancy him anyway. He was always a crock. He's not going to last. Anyway, blah blah blah. No, look, I'm very positive on the Chiesa front. I think we all are for now. Please pass your medical, Federico. Let's just move on. We got 36 hours of the window left, something like that. The other move around Liverpool that seems a near certainty is the movement of Stefan Bajcetic to, it looks like, Salzburg on a loan move. Late moves by Barcelona, which were fascinating. At the time of recording, doesn't look like they're going to come to anything because Barcelona are a basket case of a club. I'm fascinated by the Barcelona thing because, wow, that would have been interesting. What a level that would have been. But also, I'm sort of a bit perturbed because I don't think we've quite got enough midfielders. Never mind the true six. I don't think we've got enough bodies if we had a couple of injuries in there. So it's strange to be letting him go without one coming back the other way.
Yes. Okay. So
and he's good. Barca wanted him.
Yes. So let's start with the Barca stuff, because you know the reason why they wanted him, right?
Because they got an injury to what's his face.
Well, no, Mark Bernal, who's a centre half.
Oh yeah, so they wanted a defensive.
Yeah. And yes, you can say that Frankie De Jong is currently out injured. I think Gavi's obviously out long term injured, but they're both expected to come back before Christmas, I believe. So there would have been a limited game time for him in midfield. But the only reason the Barcelona went after him is because they had a recommendation from one Thiago Alcantara, who was working with Hansi Flick earlier this summer. It's like, you should get this fella. He's very good. But obviously, other people who had worked with him and know his quality had already got in there, namely Salzburg. And again, I think that's indicative of that everybody who's been in and around this kid knows that he's going to have the ability to go on and be great. And Thiago knows a thing or two about Barcelona and would have backed him to be able to thrive in that atmosphere, which I think is a massive feather in his cap. I think he's at the situation now where he would benefit from being the first name on a team sheet, rather than being someone who's coming in and being asked to fill minutes here and there for Liverpool. And yes, Liverpool's a higher level than Salzburg. Salzburg is still in the Champions League.
But their league is Championship.
Yes, their league might not be as good, but they're still in the Champions League, and he still gets to play every week. So he gets to play every week at a level. He play for a team who's expected to win every week, who's expected to maintain the ball every week, and then go and test himself at a higher level in those 8 Champions League games, maybe more. So that, I think, is a good deal. I think it was obviously adamant that even though Barcelona were maybe sniffing around a buy option, Liverpool will slam that idea shut, from what I can gather. So that's also good.
It's also quite dangerous if he'd had a good year at Barca.
Extremely dangerous.
Right? It's not like people don't like playing for Barcelona, especially Spanish kids.
No. So yes, that's I think all in all, we'll look back in 12 months' time and say it was a good thing that Bajcetic went on loan. I think he'll come back a better player, and I think he will come back. As for us, it's interesting because we've all kind of started off from the perspective that Endo's
shite.
Well, he's not gonna see game time. It's not that he's shy. It's just that he's no longer.
I'm just paraphrasing some people's opinions.
He's no longer as usable in this system as he was in the old system. He does obviously get a few minutes at the end of the game against Brentford, so he's not completely bombed out of the squad. Or whether or not that's just a kind of a little, we're just trying to get someone else in the game here. But there's a couple of moving parts for Liverpool, namely, I don't know if you know João Gomez at Wolves.
Gomez, well, yeah.
Yeah, the central midfielder, defensive central midfielder, Brazilian kid. Very
vaguely linked.
Excited. We have been vaguely linked. So not only have we been vaguely linked, but Wolves have just bought our old friend Andre.
Yeah, Andre.
And João Gomez wasn't in the squad for
Is he a 6?
Yeah.
Why haven't we been linked with him all summer long?
It's just been kind of, because I don't think there was any sign the Wolves were going to get rid of him at that point.
Good enough for us.
I think he could be.
I watched an 8-minute clip of him this morning. And he's sensational.
No,
okay.
Put this on board. I think when we were being linked with Matheus Nunes like a couple of summers ago, I was a bit like, he can do that, maybe not. This kid, he looks like he's got more of it.
Kid, how old is he?
22, 23. I think it's 23.
Will you not cost a lot of money?
We'll have to wait and see. I'm not entirely sure what the colour of Wolves' money is, but I know the Wolves are currently in a situation where they're kind of up against it. So whether or not they would need the money and are looking to do a deal. But again, it's so late, you don't know. It's haggling time is narrowed. Anyway, that was only part one of this.
You got me excited now.
Part two of this is the forgotten man in Liverpool, which is Tyler Morton.
Yeah, I know.
And like, that's the second time that he's looked like he's about to go on loan, and then it hasn't happened. And
could have been Bayer Leverkusen's Tyler Morton by this stage.
Exactly. And,
so
then, then it didn't happen. And like, frankly, I mean, I don't know Tyler, but I'd like to think it probably wasn't a problem with personal terms. He probably wasn't going there asking for a shit ton of wages. Why it's not come to pass. It's probably Arne Slot said, hold on, because in my scenarios where we don't get this and we don't get that, then I can still use this guy. And I think that if we get to Friday and there's been no deals done, then I think that Arne Slot will use Tyler Morton in his team.
I think that's interesting, John. I've thought that too. We didn't see a huge amount of Tyler in pre-season. That's the only thing that surprises me is that, yes, he did get minutes towards the end of games, and I think he was tidy. We know since he's left us, he's gone on to do some pretty solid things in the Championship, but I just have no idea what his real level is. The biggest indicator is that Leverkusen thought he could do at least a squad job for them. And, you know, they're as good as being the best team in Germany, so that's quite the recommendation.
It is, yeah, and I think these players can develop, you know, quicker than you think when they're not in your eyes. And you see that with Sepp van der Berg, do you know what I mean? Like at the start of the summer, there's a lot of us, including me, you know, laughing at the idea of getting 20 million for him. And then you see him in those pre-season games, and you're like, oh, actually, he's got a hell of a lot better since I saw him play 30 minutes in a League Cup game 4 years ago. You know, I mean, his loans have, you know, he's had more loans and more time away, and maybe playing at a slightly higher level as well. You know, obviously Bundesliga to Championship, but Morton did well last year, and you look at his numbers, and I think there's one in particular around, you know, the press resistant, where he's one of the highest in terms of, you know any league, not just the Championship, which is something that the manager will obviously really value, because he wants his deeper two-line midfielders, if you like, to be receiving the ball a lot, to be using it, to be comfortable with the back to goal, and he looks like, you know, looking at his numbers from last year, I can't say I saw huge amounts of him, you know, playing in terms of, you know, full 90s, but looking at the stats, he looks like he's going to be really comfortable with that. I would like to see a little bit more of him, you know, in the summer, like you say, but the little bits we did see, you can see he's a good footballer and a good player. So it's the fact that they've got to the point where he looked like he might go on loan, and then now he's not. You know, you do have to read a little bit into that, I suppose, that it's looking like they're saying, okay, well, you know, are they saying that they don't think that they're going to be able to get anything in, or are they saying, well, just in case we can't do something last minute, you need to stay, or are they saying, listen, even if we do get one more in, then maybe, you know, there still might be sort of opportunities for him. I always think nothing spooks managers like a little injury, and that Curtis Jones one at the weekend, albeit a small one, would have been a little reminder to everyone. I think that, oh, right, well now, you know, now we are having to throw Endo on, even though maybe, you know, we're not necessarily seeing him as being the future of this football club, and, you know, as part of the project moving forward. And so that might have been a little one where they just, you know, maybe made everyone a little bit more on the cautious side, which I'd always rather be. You look at Tyler Morton, and, you know, as Mo says, you know, none of us know him personally, but he seems like a good attitude. I think for younger players, they're generally a bit more accepting to play a little bit less, you know, especially if they've come through the system. He's been at the club since he was 8. Listen, he wants to play eventually, and he enjoyed playing last year, and he's probably quite excited by a possibility of Leverkusen. But, you know, you don't expect him sort of rocking the boat too much, really. And so I think it's one that makes sense. I do still hope that they're still trying to do something, because I think it probably is the area of the pitch now. Certainly if Gomez stays, it probably is the area of the pitch now where we're lightest, I think. That specifically that two who are going to play. But I think, you know, it's no bad thing that he's staying, and I'm looking forward to seeing him home against West Ham in the League Cup.
Well, I hope the way it plays out, I'm going to wind this up now, but I hope Mo's João Gomez shout is correct and we get him in the last minute and we let Tyler go and get proper minutes. But if not, if we keep Tyler, I think it'd be interesting. And of course, there is the January transfer window. Get out to send him on loan if he doesn't get the minutes. So it'd be interesting to see what sort of promises Arne Slot's made to him. Thank you very much, John. Pete, great debut, mate. Great debut.
Excellent.
After a shaky start. Came back with some zingers. And Mo, as always, watching full football matches so we don't have to. Thank you very much, guys. See you, well, maybe on the other side of the window.